That night, the gala bent to my command. Timelines sharp, voices polished, nothing slipping past my checklist. But one floor below, routine betrayed me. 3 men cornered me in the parking level. Their words acidic, their hands violent. I fought. I bled. When the world blurred, footsteps approached, calm, steady, and the darkness suddenly felt owned by someone far more dangerous. From the moment I walked into the Grand Le Maire ballroom, the night tried to outrun me, and I outran it first. My headset pulsed with constant chatter, but I was the spine that kept everything upright. Table 12 needs champagne refills. VIP limo still outside. Stage mic buzzing, fixing now. Every voice came to me, every fire waited on my signal to go out. As head event coordinator, chaos wasn't a threat, it was my language. Gold-washed chandeliers poured light over tailored tuxedos and glittering gowns. Movers, donors, politicians, people who measured worth in dollars and whispers, floated beneath my timing. I walked fast, spoke crisp, handed instructions like sharpened blades. My team followed without question. "Thank you, Ms. Hayes," a vendor breathed as I helped him straighten a crooked floral piece. He said it like a prayer, both respectful and a little frightened. That was the point. Still, no amount of polish stopped the small cuts, the ones that didn't bleed outside, only beneath the skin. A guest blinked at me, then at my badge. "You're the coordinator?" "Impressive," he said, tone dipped in surprise. I smiled, the customer service kind, and kept moving. Moments later, one of my own staff, a junior coordinator, questioned my timeline in front of a donor. I corrected her, calmly but decisively, and watched her cheeks flare. She avoided my glance the rest of the night. Familiar. You'd think holding power meant being free of judgment. It didn't, just meant you learned to work with people's silent calculations. Black woman. Authority? Their brains always processed it slower. I noticed a figure at the edge of the ballroom, standing just far enough to be forgotten, close enough to see everything. He didn't dress like a donor. Too simple. Too still. His attention wasn't on the stage or the guests. It was on how people behaved when they thought no one was looking. He caught my gaze once. No nod, no smile. Then he vanished into the crowd. I shook it off. Lighting check on the terrace. I moved through kitchens, hallways, storage rooms faster than music changed. Everywhere I went, people straightened, like they sensed a storm coming and hoped I wasn't it. But the first crack appeared when security radioed a missing staffer. "Probably slacking off," someone muttered. Still, the timing was bad. I logged it, redirected my assistant, and pushed forward. Then came the second crack. A delivery issue. Vendor claims he dropped equipment in the parking level but can't find it now, my assistant said. Annoying, but solvable. I headed down myself, heels clicking, mental clock ticking. The hallway narrowed as music from upstairs faded into dull vibrations. The parking level smelled like concrete and cologne. Too clean, too quiet. A sense settled over me. Not fear, just warning. Years of handling power taught me to listen to the air. Before reaching the service bay, I noticed another detail. A glass on the ground, still sweating with cold. Fresh. Someone had been here recently. Or was still here. I pressed my radio. "Security, I'm..." Static answered. I exhaled slowly, telling myself it was just another glitch. Then I stepped deeper into the shadows, unaware that my night and my life was about to shift beneath me. The parking level was colder than I expected, not by temperature, but by mood. The gala's warmth died at the stairwell door, leaving only concrete breath and flickering lights that buzzed like insects. My heels echoed in sharp, disciplined taps. I walked the lanes like I walked the ballroom, confident, alert, unbothered. But down here, that confidence felt like a jacket too thin for winter. The equipment vendor mentioned was nowhere in sight. Instead, A stretch of emptiness welcomed me. Rows of glossy black cars and a silence that felt arranged. I tried my radio. Again, nothing but static. Unusual. The building rarely failed like this. I looked around, jaws tightening. Hello? No response. I took another step. That's when I saw them. 3 men, silhouettes at first, leaning beside a pillar as though waiting for a show to start. Light caught pieces of them. Leather jackets, cheap cologne, smiles that didn't belong in a luxury venue. Their footsteps began before their words. "Well, well," one said, voice dipping with pleasure. "Boss lady came alone." I kept my stance still, shoulders square, chin lifted. "Is there a problem?" He laughed, an ugly, sloppy laugh that echoed too far. "Just admirin'. Didn't know they let girls like you run things up there." "Girls like you, not subtle." "Move aside," I said. "I'm working." "Working," another repeated. "What you working on? That pretty attitude?" He stepped forward, and the others followed, closing space with the slow certainty of predators who'd played this game before. Their formation was deliberate. 1 blocking my path, the other 2 flanking wide. "All I need is my equipment delivery. Then I'll go back up," I replied, voice cold. "Radio died. You 3 seen anyone else down here?" The tallest one grinned. "Just you." A pulse kicked at the back of my neck, instinct rising. My fingers curled around my phone inside my jacket. No signal. One man dragged 2 fingers along the hood of a nearby luxury car, eyes never leaving mine. "You really run that circus upstairs?" "Yes," I answered, "so you better step aside before I—" His hand snapped out and pinned my shoulder to the vehicle behind me. Too sudden to dodge, too strong to break. Pain flared. I shoved back, but he only smirked. "Relax," he hissed. "Just want a conversation." Another leaned in close, breath sour. "You talk real nice for a—" The word he used was filth. Familiar filth. My blood heated, but my brain stayed clean. I drove my knee hard into his thigh. He cursed and staggered. I dropped low, twisting free beneath the one holding me, sprinting toward a ramp. They weren't surprised. They enjoyed the chase. Footsteps thundered behind me. A hand caught my hair. I ripped free, losing pins and dignity in a single motion. I reached the service corridor, only to slam into locked doors. Their laughter echoed. "You're not leaving." I spotted a narrow storage alcove, barely a closet, and threw myself inside. I pulled the door nearly shut, leaving just a slit for air. Inside, it smelled of detergent and dust. I pressed a hand to my ribs, feeling warmth. Blood or bruising, I couldn't tell. Outside, footsteps slowed. Cruel. Patient. One voice floated through the gap. "You can hide. We got time." They were hunting, and I was prey. I swallowed back panic and forced my breathing quiet. But I knew hiding would only buy seconds. Something worse was coming. I could feel it in the stillness, like the darkness itself was watching, waiting to decide if it would keep me for itself or deliver me into someone else's hands. The storage alcove was barely big enough to crouch in, metal shelves pressing into my back, detergent bottles digging into my ribs. I tried controlling my breathing, afraid even my heartbeat was too loud. The concrete outside carried every sound. The shuffle of shoes, the impatient tap of a boot, low whispers that made my stomach twist. They weren't leaving. They were waiting. I counted the beats between their footsteps, trying to guess patterns, but they moved unpredictably, sometimes close enough that I smelled cigarette smoke, other times drifting away just far enough to make me think they were gone. Then the taunt would return, soft and playful. "Come out, sweetheart. You must be getting tired." My palms were slick. If I stayed here, they'd find me. If I ran, they'd catch me. I needed a third option, one that didn't exist. Then, everything changed. The atmosphere shifted, like the air took a long breath and held it. The men outside stopped talking. One muttered something I couldn't hear, voice suddenly uneasy. Their movement slowed, hesitant. Someone else had stepped onto the parking level. But this presence wasn't loud, not rushed, not nervous. Whoever it was moved with absolute control. Footsteps slow even, letting the sound reach before the person did. The predators outside, moments ago amused and confident, suddenly went silent, listening. One of them called out, half threat, half question, "Who's there?" No answer. A second voice, sharper. "I said, who's—" He never finished. A dull thud echoed, heavy and final. Something, or someone, hit the floor. The other two men cursed, panic clashing against concrete. "Back up! Back up!" The new steps kept advancing, unhurried, purposeful. No raised voice, no warning, just inevitability. Another struggle erupted, grunts, fists, desperate gasps, followed by a strangled cry that was cut short. The third man's footsteps skittered across the floor, shoes scraping like he was trying to run, but the running stopped almost immediately, with another sickening impact. Then, nothing. Only silence. Not empty silence. Owned silence. I held my breath, my body frozen in fear and relief so tightly wound together they felt indistinguishable. Every instinct screamed to stay hidden. Every instinct also knew. Hiding wasn't safety anymore, not when the hunters had become prey. Light shifted as someone stopped directly outside the alcove. For a moment, the world narrowed to a shadow beneath the door, still as carved stone. Then, with slow precision, fingers curled around the edge of the door and pulled it open. He didn't burst in. He didn't grab me. He simply opened the door and looked at me. Calm, assessing, dangerous. Dark suit, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled like he'd started the night composed and ended up dealing with blood. His face was unreadable. Sharp lines, eyes too quiet for what just happened. No rage, no shock, just certainty. "You're injured," he said, voice low but steady. I pressed deeper against the shelves, unable to speak. He glanced over my shoulder, taking in the cramped space, the trembling in my hands, then lowered his posture a fraction, as if trying not to startle me. "I'm here to get you out. Can you walk?" His tone didn't demand. It assumed. I nodded, barely. When I tried to stand, pain burned through my ribs and I stumbled. He caught me with quick, steady hands, grip firm but controlled. Not a trace of hesitation. "Where are they?" I whispered, voice thin. His eyes sharpened, a hint of cold steel beneath the calm. "Handled." It wasn't an answer. It was a statement. Final. Absolute. He guided me out of the alcove, shielding my body with his as if expecting more danger. But there were no shadows left moving. Not the kind that breathed anyway. The parking level wasn't silent because it was empty. It was silent because someone had taken ownership of it. And somehow, I knew my world wasn't going back to normal. Not after the night chose him to find me. He led me out of the alcove like he'd already memorized the map of the garage. One hand supporting my arm, the other free. Ready. Every few steps his eyes swept the shadows, not in fear, but in confirmation. As if he was checking that the world had obeyed him. Two black-clad men appeared near the ramp, silent and composed. They glanced at me. Injuries, torn dress, blood at my hairline, and something cold flickered behind their eyes. Not pity. Recognition. He gave a brief nod. They vanished without a word. He moved me toward an elevator tucked behind a concrete column, one I'd never noticed. The inside was pristine, private. He pressed a key against a panel. The doors slid shut soundlessly. With the chaos sealed behind metal, the silence pressed in. I tried to steady my breathing, but everything hurt. The ribs, the bruises, the memory. "What? What did you do to them?" My voice was barely there. He didn't look at me. "They won't come near you again." It wasn't an explanation. It was a verdict. The elevator climbed past the ballroom level without stopping. Past floors I recognized. Past floors I didn't. When it opened, we were nowhere near guests or donors. This floor was quiet, carpeted, dimly lit, more hotel than event hall. A man in a white coat stepped forward, older, calm. The boss, still unnamed, spoke only one word. Now. I barely remember being guided into a suite. Warm lights, soft furniture, the faint smell of cedar. The doctor worked silently, cleaning wounds, pressing cold packs, taping ribs. He asked gentle questions, not about what happened, but about whether I could breathe deeply, focus, stay conscious. The boss stood nearby, hands in pockets, expression unreadable. He never asked for my story. He already knew enough. When the doctor finished, he murmured, "Rest. You'll be sore. No fractures." He left as quietly as he came. I sat upright on the couch, hugging a blanket around me. Suddenly, the room felt too big, the silence too heavy. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. He studied me, not my clothes or injuries, but my fear, my confusion. "You were hurt," he said simply. "As long as you're under my watch, no one touches you." Under my watch. I didn't know whether it was a promise or a warning. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He answered without stepping away. A voice crackled, low, tense. 3. Confirmed. His reply was soft. Good. He hung up. Something in my chest shifted. Fear, relief, grief, all tangling. 3. Confirmed. I didn't ask where they were. I already knew the answer I feared. He sat across from me, elbows on his knees, gaze steady. "You can stay here tonight. You're safe." I managed a whisper. "What if they talk?" His eyes went colder than the garage floor. "They won't." The firmness in his tone made something inside me settle, even as my mind rebelled against what that certainty implied. I rubbed my healing ribs, searching for the right words. "Are you with the police?" His lips curved, not a smile. Something darker. "No." A beat, then he stood. "Sleep. Tomorrow we talk." He turned to leave, but before opening the door he paused, just long enough for truth to land. "This city listens to power," he said quietly. "Tonight, power listened to you." And then he was gone, leaving me alone in a room that was too safe to be innocent. Morning arrived slowly, leaking through closed curtains as if the sun wasn't sure it was welcome. For a moment I didn't know where I was. The room too elegant, the sheets too soft, the silence too intentional. Then memory struck. The men, the closet, him. I sat up carefully. The ache in my ribs reminded me it wasn't a nightmare. A knock sounded, not tentative, not aggressive, measured. I opened the door to find a woman dressed in simple black, poised, professional. "Breakfast," she said, pushing a cart past me. Her expression carried neither judgment nor curiosity, only acknowledgement. I wondered who trained people to look like they'd seen everything and cared about none of it. On the tray sat tea, fruit, warm bread, and a phone I didn't recognize. "Where are my things?" I asked. "In safekeeping." No explanation, no apology. Her calmness felt rehearsed. Her presence felt like a subtle reminder. I was safe here, but not free. After she left, I ate just enough to feel human again. The silence stretched until I couldn't stand it. I dialed my assistant's number. It rang twice, then clicked. "Miss Hayes. Oh my God, are you okay? They said you were—" "I'm fine," I said quickly, even though I wasn't. There were whispers behind her, voices trying to pry into the call. "People are talking," she continued, lowering her voice. "They're saying something. Happened in the parking level. Security's acting weird, keeping everyone quiet, saying it's being handled." Handled. His word. "I'll be back soon," I said, though I didn't believe it. When I returned to the suite's living room, he was there, standing by the window, back to me, hands in his pockets. He didn't turn when he spoke. "You shouldn't worry about the rumors." "Hard not to," I replied, "and it's my event." He finally faced me. Still is. There was something unsettling about him, how still he stood, emotionless but entirely aware. "You can't control everything downstairs," I said, his gaze sharpened faintly. "I already did." The words weren't arrogant, just factual. "You can go home later today," he added. "I'll have someone drive you." "I can drive myself." "No," he said calmly. "You can't." I hated how the certainty in his tone almost convinced me he was right. "Why do you care?" I asked. "I saw how you ran that room," he replied. "People listened to you. They trusted you. That's rare." "That's my job," I said. "Plenty have the job. Very few have the presence." The compliment unsettled me more than the silence. I paced, needing space from him, not physically but mentally. "You do this a lot?" I asked. "Save strangers in garages?" His eyes held mine. "I don't save. I correct." I didn't know if that was reassurance or confession. Later, when I returned to the gala with a plain coat covering the bruises, whispers followed me like shadows. Staff lowered their voices. Some stared. A few avoided me completely. But security, once slow, dismissive, now stood straighter when I passed. They acknowledged me with subtle nods, moving faster when I gave instructions. Someone upstairs had made it clear I was not to be ignored anymore. Still, the stares grew heavy. Questions hung in the air. What happened? Who intervened? Why her? I tried to carry on, but every corner felt watched, every conversation measured, until he appeared again, this time not in the shadows, but openly. He crossed the ballroom with the kind of quiet that made people step aside without understanding why. Someone whispered a name I didn't catch. Someone else instantly hushed them. He stopped near me, close enough for others to see, far enough to keep conversation private. "You're not alone," he said softly. 3 simple words, but they changed the air around us, because protection wasn't safety. Protection was ownership. And now, everyone knew I belonged to someone powerful, even if I hadn't agreed to belong at all. The gala ended days ago, but the event had never really stopped. It just moved underground, into whispers, locked rooms, and quiet threats that glowed beneath the city like hidden wires. I learned that quickly. The morning after my return, 2 security contractors resigned without warning. A vendor who'd ignored me for months suddenly sent flowers and a handwritten apology. A wealthy donor tried to pry for details, only to be gently escorted away by staff I didn't even supervise. Nothing made sense on paper, but everyone behaved as if they knew a silent empire now stood behind me. And they weren't wrong. My phone buzzed that afternoon. An unknown address, 1 line. "We need to talk. Now." I knew who it was before I arrived. The mansion sat on a hill, too quiet for its size, too alive to be empty. The gates opened before I reached them, like the house itself recognized me. Inside, soft music drifted through the hall, calm enough to disturb me. He waited in a study lined with books and something colder, power disguised as culture. He stood when I entered, no smile, no warmth, just acknowledgement. "You came," he said. "You asked," I replied. He motioned to a seat near the fire. I didn't sit. He noticed, but didn't insist. "There's something you need to know," he said. "The men who attacked you, they weren't acting alone." My fingers curled. "Meaning?" "Someone else arranged for you to be isolated that night." My stomach dropped. "Who?" He studied my face before answering, not to gauge fear, but readiness. "A man who owes money. Someone who believed hurting you might buy him time." I blinked. "I don't even know him." "You don't have to be the target to be useful," he said quietly. "You were leverage." The truth tasted worse than the violence. He offered a small wooden box. Inside lay a phone, screen lit with a single message thread. Photos, location pins, names, transactions, evidence. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked carefully. "Because choices must be made," he said, "and you deserve to choose knowing the truth." I stared at the screen, at the man who'd casually endangered my life for business. The phone felt heavy, like justice and guilt weighed the same. "What do you plan to do?" I asked. "What you ask," he answered. The simplicity scared me more than any threat. "I won't decide someone's life," I said. "You won't," he replied. "I will. I just need your answer." The room held its breath. The fire crackled, warm and cruel. I thought of that night, of blood on concrete, hands on my body, laughter in the dark. I thought of the silence afterwards, the emptiness where apologies should have been, and I remembered his question. "Do you need them to have suffered?" My voice came out small, raw. "I want him gone." His gaze flickered, not satisfaction, acknowledgement. "It will be done." I finally sank into the chair, feeling my ribs ache with the weight of decision. "What happens now?" I whispered. He sat across from me, posture relaxed, voice measured. "Now," he said, "we draw a line. Anyone who crosses it disappears." I swallowed. "And me?" "You stay on this side of the line," he said. "With me." The fire reflected in his eyes, dangerous, certain, unafraid. Outside, the night pressed against the windows, but it couldn't get in. Not anymore. Because I had made my choice. And the city would learn what it meant to hurt someone who wasn't alone.